All right, so on our call tonight, we have a very special guest. Her name is Carol Schirr. I'm super excited to bring her on. If you have questions or comments for Carol as we're going through, please add them in the comments and I'll circle back around to them. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Carol onto the call now. And as I do, if you're just joining us, please go ahead and share where you're joining us from and tag a friend in the comments. And Carol, let me go ahead and bring you on. There we go. Awesome. All right, Carol, can you hear me?
I can, and I have a message for you that the Facebook is not working,
Yeah, I noticed that too.
and a lot of people are texting me saying, "I can't, it's not working." I'm like,
Okay,
"Okay, I don't know how to fix it."
let me just see if I can refresh it and get it to come back in. So there is going to be a replay for this call. So hopefully, even though we may be having some difficulties getting the live to come up, there will be the replay that will be available within just a few minutes. So, and the other thing, Carol, is we may be streaming on the business page. So let me just take a
Oh,
quick look and see if that worked. And if it is, we might be able to send everybody over to there. So
okay.
let's take a
So what
look.
do I tell them?
Yeah, there we go. Just let me go ahead and while you're doing your introduction, I'll just send a
Yeah.
quick message and let everybody know what's happening. So
Okay, and then send them a link to it.
I will. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
We'll do that. Awesome. Isn't technology just lovely sometimes?
Yeah.
And this is the exact same thing that happened last week on Mandy's, or the couple weeks ago on Mandy's call. So I don't know. I've got to try to figure out what's happening there, but we'll figure it out. Don't you worry. All right.
Okay.
So, Carol, thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited that you're here. And so, while I'm messaging everybody over here, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about your background as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Kimmy, for having me on here. You do such a great job with hosting, and I'm super excited that you're having me on. So, a lot of people know me for a long, long time, but I think there's a lot of things I'm going to share tonight that they don't even know about. So, it's kind of a mystery tonight. Um, I am one of 8 children. I was born in Michigan. All of us were born in Michigan. My parents were born and raised in Saginaw, Michigan. And just a second. People are asking me where we are. Sorry. So I'm the sixth of 8. So I'm kind of a middle child, if so to speak. Um, my dad was a pastor, so I have a very strong faith and belief in the word of God for sure. My mom was an RN, registered nurse, because with 8 kids, you have a lot of mouths to feed, and a country preacher is not going to be able to feed all of us 10 people. So anyway, it was interesting growing up. I was what they called the compliant child, because you know there was a lot of them that weren't compliant, so I guess I had to be. But I was always an introvert, and just a minute. Maybe you need to let some other people in on the call. Yeah, I mean, like into the tribe that they're
Okay.
asking about it.
I'll go take a look, Carol. I just posted a message, so
Yeah.
hopefully, yeah, hopefully we can get that.
Okay, it's pretty
I'm
good.
sorry.
No problem. So anyway, my mom, I was telling Kimmy that she literally had no fear, zero. She just thought we could do anything, and I guess in reality you really can. It's just your own fear. Well, I was an introvert, which people find very amazing. But I would just hide in the background. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be heard. I just wanted to blend in, make everybody happy, peacemaker type person. And I was just horrified to even have my name called, because I just did not like the limelight at all. And here I am, the queen of oils now. But it was because I don't know, I just felt more comfortable hiding in the shadows. And that's just like my general real makeup. Well, my dad is like a celebrity. Now, he was real shy and introverted too as a young person, but then he's a preacher. And I mean, everywhere we went, everybody knew my dad. I mean, you could go to California and walk down the street and people like, you must be a Zelenko. And it's like, how do you know that? So it's kind of crazy how God makes you the thing that you're not really strong in, you know? So my mom always pushed us forward. I'll just give you a couple examples. Um, with my dad having this high profile job, of course, he became an Awana missionary. I don't know if you ever heard of Awana, but it's a youth club in churches.
Mm-hmm.
So he just loved it because he loves kids. Obviously, he had 8 of them. He's an only child, by the way. And so they had these big banquets every year, like thousands of people would go to them in Chicago. And at the time we lived in Wisconsin because we had already moved from Chicago. I'm like 16 years old, my sister's 14, and we can play the piano, sing, whatever, but it's pretty elementary, at least in my mind. So my mom's like, oh yeah, my girls can play, piano duet and, sing a duet. We're like, no, we can't. And she's like, oh yeah, they're gonna, and so whatever, no is not even an option, so we're terrified. We had to do a piano duet, which was the Hallelujah chorus. Very difficult piece, very long.
Nothing big.
I mean, not like it's chopsticks or something, that you can just play out of your head. I'm talking pages and pages of just black with notes and everything and fast. Okay, my sister was so nervous that she was throwing up and had the runs, couldn't eat because, I mean, this is horrible. We're up on this big old stage. The Chicago Bears were there. And we're like, oh my gosh, we cannot do this. But you can, but we were forced. And, I was talking to Kimmy about this, and it's like the things I resisted the most actually gave me the most confidence, in where I am today. It's like a diamond. You got to put it under a lot of pressure. And believe me, that was pressure. I mean, we were just shaking literally. And I have a photo upstairs. I was going to dig that out today and bring it to you of me and my sister stand up there. My mom made us these satin dresses and oh my God, but it was horrifying. So we played the piano, of course, everybody claps, 5,000 people. Then we had to sing a duet with a taped background. And anyways, that was our beginning of push, at least the ones that I remember. Then just a year later, my cousin gets married in Dallas, and my mom, okay, I worked at a place called Ice Cream World, and they taught me how to make the borders on the cakes, ice cream cakes. Okay. So my mom thinks I'm an all-out professional, and I'm like, what? I made one birthday cake and it really didn't look very good. It was a t-shirt. I have a picture of it. It's pretty, whatever. But I had no training, zero. It's just buy this in the store, a Wilton product, go make it and whatever. So my aunt calls from Dallas. No, she's married to my mom's twin brother. And she's like, oh yeah, Carol can make the cake. I'm like, what? I said, no, I can't. A wedding cake? No. I made one birthday cake, one cake mix. I don't even know the formulas, how much you got it, how many cake mixes and what. I don't even have pans. I'm like, Mom, I have no equipment. Weddings are important. People don't just, I mean, the cake is an important part of the wedding. Oh yeah. So we go all the way from Chicago, we're living at the time, to Dallas. And it was so stressful. Oh my God. To this day, I do not remember making this cake. I have pictures of it made with me standing by it. I had pillars and everything. But honest to God, it was a miracle. I don't know how that ever came out, but she was always pushing, and I just, you know, but forces you to do stuff, right? So
Yeah, and she definitely believed in you. She had a high
yes,
faith in
did,
your
no
ability.
doubt. Yeah, no doubt whatsoever. And it was like,
Right.
oh my gosh, inside you're just gonna die,
Mhm.
awful pressures. It was just bad. But you know what they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
And
So
Carol, I mean, looking back at all of that, don't you I know we kind of talked about this a little bit last night, but you start to recognize how your mom really set you up to win in life with all of that. And looking back through all of the different things that you've had to overcome, imagine not having those skills that your mom taught you going through
no.
those experiences. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about more of like your, you know, what happened with your first and second marriage? I know that those were complete polar opposite experiences. So,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so I'm heavily involved in the church. And my parents, I went to 11 different schools. Are you
Wow.
saying something?
No, no, you're good.
Oh, because you're delayed, so I'm not sure if
No,
I'm,
don't pay attention to me, girl.
yeah, no, I just see, your
You're
mouth
doing
moving.
perfect.
Yeah, so we moved all the time, and here I am, an introvert, super ugly. I mean, I was so ugly that it was embarrassing. And people always told me how ugly I was too. I had buck teeth, whatever. So we got this fixed. And I mean, I was just the homeliest child you have ever put eyes on. So that didn't help. You're moving all the time. You're always the new kid on the block, blah, blah, blah. But um, my mom and dad had the most strong faith. So we prayed about everything. Okay, so a lot of times you'd lose the keys to the car. And we would literally, like, my mom would say, okay, we got to sit down, we're going to pray and ask God to show us where the keys are. And lo and behold, as soon as we get done praying, boom, there's the keys. It was crazy. So you just learn these things. And my life's verse that I adopted when I was 5 years old was Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. In
Mm.
all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. So um my first husband was my Sunday school teacher, believe it or not. And he was 9 years older than me. So, we always thought it was, I dated him for 3.5 years before we even got married. And um, nothing showed up weird or like questionable until the day we got married. And he was a complete narcissist, which was totally a shock. Now, my parents are madly in love. They're married for 66 years. They always held hands, put the arm around each other. They did everything together, and they just loved each other. I mean, we grew up in a very demonstrative home, and we always hugging, loving, and even to this day, my mom passed away a couple of years ago, but a very loving family. So I am married, all of a sudden, bam, I get this boat or across the side of my head. We were only married like I didn't tell you this, Kimmy. I was married 6 months. It's Christmas, Wisconsin. It's 20 below zero with a blinding storm. I'm at this huge office building working at Century Insurance. And we only had one car, so he was supposed to come across town, pick me up, and we go home. That was the routine. Well, he was 30 years old when we got married. He's a confirmed bachelor. I thought he forgot to pick me up. But what happened was I had gone down to the main office main door where he was going to pick me up. Had to go to the bathroom. Now I can go to the bathroom super quick, and it was only like 20 feet away. I'm like, he's not coming, but it's snowing, bloody blue blazes. Terrible. The snow's going sideways. I quick went in the bathroom, came back out, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. Of course, we had no cell phones. This is 1985. No such thing
Right.
as a
Oh
cell phone.
my gosh, no kidding.
Oh yeah. So I go, he wasn't coming. So I kept going to the office desk and calling our house or our apartment because I'm like, he must have just forgot he was married, is what I was thinking. And no, he answered the phone. I said, "Oh my gosh, did you forget to pick me?" He goes, "No, you weren't there when I where you were supposed to be, figure it out, figure out how to get home in a blinding storm. And we lived, 15 miles away. So I didn't know what to do. I mean, you're shocked. You don't even know what to say, whatever. So I just start walking home in a blinding storm. And this guy that I worked with, he stops, he goes, "What are you doing?" I had a dress on, a skirt on, high heel boots. I go, I guess I'm walking home. And he goes, "Where do you live?" I said, "Plover," which is a different town, you know. And he's like, "There's no way you can do this. Get in the car." I go, "Well, where do you live? Do you live by these people?" This person that was a deacon in our church lived real nearby him, said, "Take me over there." I had to find my own way home. This was horrible. And then 2 weeks later, he pulled the same thing. I was at church and I got home. I was like, "If you ever do this again, I will take the guns that you have and shoot you with them." I mean, I was pissed.
Mhm.
So abandonment. Okay, that is a giant abandonment issue. Your own husband leaves you, whatever. It's just a control issue. So anyway, I don't know why. I guess I believed he would change, or you're young, stupid, and you don't believe in divorce because you're religious, But 18 years I put up with that. So
Wow,
finally one
18 years,
day,
Carol.
18 years is, I guess I'm a slow learner. I don't know.
No, I mean, that just shows how much, trauma can keep us down, right? Because you probably just didn't realize or didn't think that, you could get out of it. So, it's amazing that you ended up being able to, find your way out. So, yeah, finish that part of the story. I can't wait to
Yeah.
hear the ending of it.
Yeah, and so one day I just decided, I was like, because I tried everything. I mean, I wrote him literally boxes full of letters because he gave them to me after I left. He kept them all. I'm begging for help. Oh my God, and I'm talking starting at like 6, 8 months into marriage. I'm like, what have I done, So anyway, I just decided I had a talk with God, because my mom told me at the 10-year mark, she goes, "You can come home. You don't have to put up with this." I said, "No, I need to face the music," is what I said. So anyway, all of your decisions, people, it's just a decision. And I just have learned, I take the decisions I've made. It's not a good decision, bad. It just is. And I use those as learning experiences. You can't just sit there and wear it as a weight on your back. So, um, I just kept going, I kept try this, try that. I don't know what you think. I don't think you can think. So one day I just decided, and that's a whole long story in itself. I just decided I deserve better than this. And
Mm.
it's not helping me being in this situation. He's never going to change. It's over. So we just sat down, I'm like, "Where are you going to go? Do you see yourself in 5 years?" Same thing, same place, which is nowhere. And I said, "Geez," I said, "I don't, I'm going this way, you're going that way." And he said, "Oh my gosh, if you're talking about divorce, are you going to take one of the dogs?" We had two
That was
dogs.
that was what he had to say?
Yes, that's what he said.
Oh, Carol, that just
I
I
go,
mean,
"I know," it's like, hello, No, he never did anything with me. I did everything alone. And I'm like, "Look, I got married to be with somebody and do stuff with, I don't understand." And my parents were inseparable. So it's a foreign concept.
mm,
Completely don't understand what's going on. And so I said, "Yeah, I'm going to take my dog, Whitney. And then he goes, "Well, what furniture are you going to take?" I said, "Well," it's 10:30 at night. I'm not going to be leaving for 30 days. I'm not going to decide tonight what furniture I'm taking. I'm not taking any of it, probably. So anyway, I met John. I was doing blood work down in Kentucky. Okay, after in January decided, okay, God, I do not know how I'm going to get out of here because I can't afford to live on my own. I don't know where I'm going. All I know is I'm just going to I actually had this conversation with God. I just said, I'm going to just keep doing what I do and whatever. Oh gosh, people are saying it's not coming up.
oh, it is. All they have to do is just refresh. Everything is working now, Carol.
Okay. Anyway, So I just said, I'm doing what I'm doing and whatever you lead me to do. Cause remember, my life's verse is, in all your ways,
Proverbs.
acknowledge him. He'll direct your path, you know?
Exactly. Yep.
And I just had faith that something was going to turn out. I had no idea what it was. So that April 8th, I was down in Lexington, Kentucky. Never been there in my life. One of my awesome friends who is now passed, she was a nutritionist and she taught me a lot of the things that I know for health. She's like, hey, I gotta go to I need to go to Lexington, you know, and or Nashville for something. I'm like, I can't go anywhere. I gotta work, you know, all the time just to make ends meet. And I happened to have a client that I knew on the phone in Lexington. I said, how far do you live from Nashville? It was like 4 hours. So I rented a car, brought all my stuff. I happened to meet when I drove into town, I still hadn't met anyone in Lexington. I said out loud to myself, I said, wow, this is beautiful. I don't know if you ever seen Lexington. It's gorgeous. And I said, I belong here. That's what I said.
Oh.
So on my last day there, my last client was John Rood. Now, he was a golf pro. I don't know a thing about golf even till this day, you know?
Even though you live in a golf community.
Right, you
Oh
know,
my
I don't
gosh.
know this stuff. And so he had allergies really bad and he was just really impressed with the blood work I did and whatever. So long story short, I'm like, just a minute. Um, he he was 26 years older than me, and when I didn't believe in anything like, you know, people talk about Capricorns or whatever, you know, and I'm like, ooh, that was weird. But I thought, hello, I'm not gonna ever marry an Aquarius again. he, he was born
Lesson
on
learned.
he was born on Valentine's Day, and I'm telling you what, it was pure hell. I never knew where he was coming from. You know, he could be happy, sad, mad, furious, most of the time mad and furious.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah, he abused verbally, terrible verbal abuse. Oh my gosh, it was awful. But anyway, so I said, well, you should, you know, look for a Taurus. I don't even know what that is, you know. So I knew the birth dates, and when I saw his intake form for his blood work, it said May 1st. I'm like, that's a Taurus. I just kind of observing what he was. I wasn't thinking a thing, you know, but he's 26 years older than me. I thought he was saying, I'm like, hey, he says, hey, you know, I think I'm going to take you out for dinner. I'm like, what? I got to work. But anyway, we ended up going out for a sandwich and talking and stuff. And anyways, it was a magical thing that happened. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's almost my dad's age. But he was amazing. He was like my soulmate. He was extremely demonstrative. He worshiped the ground I walked on. He's the only person I've ever met that could really, truly demonstrate unconditional love, which I had never seen, you know, in anybody. He's totally devoted to me, so kind, extremely diplomatic, and I don't know. He was an amazing person. So I thought, oh, I'm gonna wait. I told him, I said, no, I'm gonna wait a year because, you know, I don't know. So we didn't even get married till August of 2003, 2003. So I was like a year and 4 months or something after I'd left Wisconsin. And during that time, we got this phone call from one of my Young Living clients. He's like, hey, I got my best friend in the whole world here. And he told me he has to meet the queen. If you haven't known, I'm the queen of oils. And I know all kinds of stuff about health. Now, at the beginning, though, I didn't want anything to do with oil. I was like, that is weird. It was very unpopular in 2001 when I got in. And it wasn't known like it is today. I just thought it was weird. I'm like, oh my God, that's just so, no. So this guy made me get a kit because one of my clients wanted toothpaste of all things. I said, just buy me the cheapest thing. There is, just to get my name in the hat, because he's like, you have to be in because she's your client. Oh, I want nothing to do with it. I put the kid on this. I smelled them all. Oh yeah, I had thieves and stuff like that and everything. Smells good, but so one day I actually went to a training to learn raindrop, and there was a book there called Healing Oils of the Bible. John loved to read, and he was extremely into anything God, the Bible, whatever. He loved it. So, well, that sounds like a book John would read. I brought it home, and he's like, he went crazy. He's like, this is God. This is the Bible. This is in the Bible. And I'm like, okay, here I am, preacher's kid, missionary's kid. I'm like, well, if it's in the Bible, it's got to be right. So I decided to open my mind a little bit towards it.
Yes.
So then when we get this phone call about this guy, his herniated discs, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what he needs. And so he's a truck driver, friend of this guy. And so I tell him, I said, well, it's going to be a little bit of an investment if you want to do the whole thing, or you can go a little at a time. He goes, I don't care what it costs. I want all of it. So it was like $350 back then. So we got him these 9 oils and these 2 supplements. And in a week's time, no pain. And he's still to this day. That was 2007. To this day, he doesn't. He still has herniated discs, but they don't bother him because he follows this protocol. Once a week now he puts this protocol on. So another weird thing is that, of course, you never know when someone's going to die. Hello. If you did, it would scare you to pieces,
Exactly.
Oh, John, I used to travel extensively. I have a whole clinic with massage table, blood, microscope. I fill my whole van and go across country, and I'd set up in different cities across the United States. And that's how I built my business. And so my husband, Donnie, now he was just a client of ours, and John always talked to him every month because he was on auto ship. John took a lot of my calls because I was so stressed out and busy in those days that he would just do it to take the work off of my plate, because he was 64 years old when I met him. He was already retired. So he loved
That's
it.
perfect. Yeah, that's
He was
perfect.
so good with people. He would just, and he'd say, I really like that Don Shear. He is the nicest man. Every month he'd say, he is the nicest man. And John did all the talking with him, I just once in a while talk to him. So he says, hey, are you guys coming through Oklahoma by any chance? And, well, we could, where do you live? Tells us, he goes, well, I want to get one of those raindrops, and maybe get my blood work done. Okay. So we went and stayed at his house for 2 days and did all this stuff. He brought massage therapists in and all this stuff. Donnie, it's the first time I ever saw him
Okay. So
with our
Carol,
eyes.
hold on, because I want to make sure that everybody's following this part of the story because it's really cool. So if you're just joining us right now, Carol sharing her story with us. I know we've had a little bit of technical difficulties throughout the call so far, but thank you for joining in and sticking with us. Carol so far has told us a little bit about her very first marriage of 18 years that was just completely abusive and toxic and not at all what she was expecting. And after 18 years, she decided that she deserved better. She knew that she wanted to see that beautiful marriage just like her mom and dad had. And she divorced her husband and eventually met her soulmate, John, who was quite a bit older, 26 years older, right, Carol?
Yes.
And so John and Carol were married, and now they're doing, this beautiful business together. And John is helping to take some of Carol's calls and happens to be talking to Donnie, her current husband. It's a little bit confusing because you don't know the whole ending of the story, but I just wanted to share a little bit and fill in some of the details for some of you guys who are just joining in. So, Carol, the next part of the story is probably the hardest, part to share. So, why don't you tell us, what happened and just kind of share as much of the information as you're able to.
Okay. Okay. So, we saw Donnie, and if you would have told me then that like a year from then I would be widowed and Donnie would be divorced and we would be dating. I would be like, you are crazy, because I had no interest in a truck driver, for one thing, for sure. And I was madly in love with John. So, that was crazy. So we had booked our trip to Ecuador through Young Living, the very first trip they had, because they just got a farm going down there. And it was a trip for neuroauricular training. So John and I went on it, and he kept saying this strange phrase a million times to everybody, me, and I would say, what do you mean? He would say, I'm so excited about this trip. I just feel like there's some kind of destiny. And I'm going, destiny? Like, what do you mean? I don't know. I just feel like there's some kind of destiny. He would say this with like this exuberance,
I've
and
got
I would
goosebumps.
always say, what are you talking about? I go, I'm not moving to Ecuador. That's what I would say. Even on the plane going down, he's like, I just feel like there's some kind of destiny. And I thought, oh, I don't, it was like he was saying something he didn't know. You know, it was the craziest thing.
Complete
So,
intuition. Yeah.
yeah, his intuition. Yeah. Okay. So, we go down there February like 23rd. We were supposed to come home March 3rd, but he gets altitude sickness because we were at 10,000 feet. And just things just started. He was extremely healthy. He was 69 years old, and just people thought he was like 40, because I mean he had no gray hair. He was super athletic, just vibrant person. And he said he was going to live to be 120. I'm like, go for it. I'm not going to live that long for sure. So anyway, things just went from bad to worse. Well, I had earned a cruise. I had done a lot of business building. So Karen Malone, who's a Black lady from Flint, Michigan, her and her husband were down there because her husband was sick. So we had both our husbands sick in the Young Living Clinic together, and we both had earned this trip. So we flew back home in April, and we went on this cruise. And then I was just doing my business. John and I had our tickets bought to meet in Phoenix May 17th. We were going to both fly to Phoenix. Him from Ecuador, me from Kentucky. Well, he turned 70 May 1st, and Mother's Day is when I quit getting phone calls from him. I'm like, oh, I wonder what happened. Because everything weird happens in Ecuador. I don't know if you ever went to a third world country, but it's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
And every day something strange happens. And then I get a phone call at the night, and I'm like, oh, I always called him Lover. I'm like, Lover, where have you been? And it wasn't him. It was Gary Young's cousin who ran the clinic. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I thought it was John. She goes, yeah, well, he had a stroke. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm thinking, don't agree with fear. You do not agree with fear. It's going to be fine. And I'm like, so like, what's wrong with him? And you're like, well, I said, why didn't you call me? Well, he told us to call you. Oh, so I'm thinking he could talk. He told you to call me? Okay. He must be fine. I said, can I talk to him? Well, no, because he was hard to understand, I guess. But anyway, I never heard him talk after that anyway. So I went down there. I quick got on an airplane, ran down there. And he was doing pretty good for about 5 or 6 days. And I don't know if you ever heard of the oil of joy, but I never liked the oil. It was too strong, and it just didn't rub me the right way. But when I could see he was dying, because you just know, it's like, ooh, this ain't gonna turn out the way I think. And I just thought I better grab the oil of joy. It helps with the dying process, or for grieving and all that. And I just breezed right through it because I have faith in God, right? So when I got the final phone call, you got to go back to they call it clinic. It's kind of a hospital. He was in ICU, but you guys, it's a third world country. I could never describe what it was like. And Gary Young, the owner of Young Living, was with me, his cousin, and about 4 or 5 other Americans, so it wasn't like I was there by myself, but I had no family, no nothing. And I had to make all these unbelievable decisions, you know? So when Gary Young told me, he says, okay, Carol, he's in your hands now. So what do you want to do? So I asked him if we could anoint him with harmony or with release, joy, and awaken. And I told him the reasons why. I can't get into it now. So we all prayed over him, went home, get a call as soon as I get back to the house 2 blocks away. You got to go back. So I come back and I had to ask this Perry Malone, the black guy, to come with me because you can't go anywhere by yourself. You'll get mugged or something, they say. I never saw anything at all, period, but that's what they tell us. So we walked back over there and John's gone, and I'm like, oh my God. And then Perry, big black guy, he hits the floor crying because he was his friend. He's like, oh my God. And I'm like, I thought to myself, well, you can't lose your crap, I mean, we got to keep our heads on straight.
Hmm.
And so it just got crazier. Then the doctor shows up, Dr. Leda. It's a female, and she comes in, she's like, looking at me like, what? And I'm like, he's gone. And she falls into a heap of crying on me. And I'm like, God,
You got
please don't.
everybody falling to pieces.
I know, and I'm like, hello, I got to be strong. I mean, this is going to be a long process. And it was, and that's a whole nother story. So John passes away, and I just breezed through it, honest to God, because when he died, I said, wow, God, I said, you know, I never knew this would be on my path. I never thought of it in the world, but you obviously know I can take it. So where are we going from here based on my life's verse? And I just never doubted God. I never did. I was just like, well, it's not a dead end. Something's going on, but I never thought about getting married again. And in fact, I never wanted to date. I'm like, I'm just going to do my business. I'm good. I had it horrible once and absolutely wonderful the next. How are you going to, do that again? So then Donnie was a client of mine, but I would travel the world. Remember, I'm traveling, and he's a truck driver. So I'd come to these junctions on my trips, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, my GPS says this, but my paper from MapQuest says this, and they conflict. So I call them up and they say, I got 5 minutes to make this decision. Do I do this or do I do that? Oh no, don't do that. Do this. And then he'd wait till I got past and
Yeah, because
go.
he's a truck driver. He knows all the roads, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
53 years of it, And
Hmm.
I'm like, he knew all the exit numbers and everything, and I was just like, oh, so I just felt secure and I never thought a thing about it really. And so one day he's like, hey, I'm coming through Lexington. Maybe I could stop by. Clients stop by all the time. I never think one thing about it. So I said, okay, yeah, sure. Come on over. And about an hour before he came, this feeling came over like, oh, I don't know. Maybe there's something to this, and I opened the door. I'm like, don't get your heart set on me because I'm never getting married again.
Never say never, right?
I know. Oh yes, for sure, for sure. So just a couple weeks into it, because John's only been gone 4 months. All of a sudden, Donnie's in my life, and I'm like, you're feeling all weird, like, oh my God, is this? Maybe I'm being tricked. I thought I was being tricked. Like this has got to be a trick from the devil because Donnie is just wonderful, or he seemed like it, and he is. But you don't know. Anybody can fake it.
And it's like too
So
good
one
to be
day,
true, right?
yeah.
Your brain talks you out of good things sometimes.
Right. And so, God just really wanted to bless me, and he did. So, anyway, one day I was like, I just, or Donnie says to me, I know John's been, and you were really attached to him, and you can have all the time you want. And all of a sudden, I just kind of got teared up. No, I don't cry very easily. I'm either super angry or, I mean, I don't know. I just don't cry very much. And so I just thought, oh my gosh, I want to call John and tell him how happy I am. So by now we have cell phones, right? And Donnie goes, "Oh no, did I say something wrong?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, well, what is it? I said, I just want to call John. I want to tell him how happy I am, because that's what was the most important thing to him ever, was that I was happy. And then all of a sudden, this flood of memory came back. So it's October. We left for Ecuador in February 23rd. About February 20th, John comes down the hall. Now, how I never remembered this statement he said till right that moment, I don't know. He comes down the hall and he goes, he puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, I have to tell you something. And I thought, oh my God, the look on his face was like, I thought he wrecked my car. That's what I thought. I'm like, oh no, he wrecked my car. And I'm like, so what is it? And he goes, I just want you to know, if something ever happens to me, I want you to find someone and get married again. And I go, what? I pulled away from him. I said, what? I said, what are you saying? You're going to outlive me anyway. You're going to live to be 120. What? Why are you saying something like that? And he let me manifest, and he just said the exact same words again. I just want you to know, if something ever happens to me, I want you to find somebody and get married. And I'm like, okay, fine. Just stop saying that. I said, because it just blew my mind, So him saying this destiny thing, I put the two together. I'm like, he knew, but he didn't know. Okay. So I'm worried that I'm being tricked. I like, you don't get married right after you have a widow, it's just, you just don't. I'm 44 years old, whatever. So I had this big gathering of Young Living people at my house, and I'm like, hey, you guys, check this guy out, because, hey, I might be losing my mind. And they're all like, oh no, the guy's amazing. So this one lady who's very clairvoyant, she came up to me and she goes, I got to tell you something. Okay, what? She goes, you know what I think? I said, what? She goes, I think John picked him for you. And I went, I think you're right, because you'd always say he is a wonderful guy, And it's been a serious emotional roller coaster being married to a truck driver.
Oh gosh.
It is crazy. And I just told him the other day, I said, I love you to pieces, but you're crazy. I mean, it isn't the most insane thing. But like I said, you just have to be flexible.
Yeah, I think that John was definitely right. Donnie is such a nice man. Like
Mhm.
every time I see him, his face is just lit up with this big smile, and he's just always so happy and sweet. And I love his nickname, Sugar Bear. It fits him so perfectly. So,
That's what I nicknamed him. I'm like, you are the sweetest guy. I'm gonna just name you Sugar Bear. He's like a big
yes.
teddy bear. He's so
So, all right, Donnie has been a truck driver
well.
for
Now I gotta,
54 years, right? And now you
yeah,
two have been
54 years,
okay, and you two have now been married for 14 years. But it was like
right?
only 2 years into like when you two were married that you had another huge trauma to overcome. So
Big drama.
about that part,
Yes.
because this is
Yeah,
the
it is.
part that's
I know, it seems like it never ends. So,
hmm
John, I don't even have the legal stuff settled out with John, because, there was just some weird stuff. So I'm married to Donnie. We got married 1 year and 3 months after John passed away. So we're on our second anniversary, and we had this big trip planned. We're going to Branson, Missouri, and my sister and her husband and this other couple that's in my Young Living group were going to meet us there. And we had this big thing planned. Oh my gosh. So I had been out on the road with Donnie for 6 weeks. He took me to the Tulsa airport. I flew back to Lexington so I could start packing for this trip, because we're leaving in 2 weeks. And his really, really good friend that he drove for 40 years. He never had an accident. He had beautiful trucks, worked for the same company Donnie does now. And for 37 years he's worked there. And that guy, Donnie, goes, hey, what if we have David drive our route the week we're gone? That way he can get some money. He's out of retirement and whatever. Everything's good. It sounds good to me. So he dropped me off at the airport, went to the insurance company, added David to the policy. They drove to California from Oklahoma. And on the way back, they said, we're going to drive team on the way back. And that means one person sleeps and the other one drives, and then they switch. So you just keep going 24 hours a day. So we can get back to Oklahoma. I was, okay. So he said goodbye, whatever. 6 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call. And it's the police. They're like, I'm in Kentucky and they're in Arizona. Okay, so I get this phone call. Says, who am I talking to? Was the way they answered the phone. I'm like, who am I talking to? It was a guy, and he goes,
Oh my
oh,
gosh.
sorry, this is Officer Timmerman from the Arizona Highway Patrol. And I'm thinking, oh, shoot, what did they do? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, do you know a Leon David Terry? And I'm like, I know a David Terry. I mean, I only met the guy one time. Well, and he was real adamant. I said, yeah, I know a David Terry. Why? He goes, there's been a terrible accident. I need to get hold of the family. I'm like, what? I go, accident? What are you talking about? What about Don Shear? He's like, how do you know him? Because he found a phone that we talked
Oh,
on. It was on the manifold of the truck. And all it said was sweetie. It didn't say wife, girlfriend. I mean, he's a truck driver. It could be anything. I said, well, I'm his wife, and he goes, oh, he's in critical condition. They flew him to Las Vegas. I'm like, oh
oh
my
my
God.
God.
I was like, what? And I said, well, what about David Terry? And he said, oh, he's deceased. I'm telling you what,
Oh,
I'm like, oh my God. I had just gotten home. I didn't have my suitcases unpacked, nothing. And I just couldn't even believe what I was hearing. I called my mom just screaming. And I'm a person always under control. I'm like, and she's like, what's wrong? Oh my gosh, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, Donnie, and because she already lived through one husband dying on me. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. He's in critical condition. I don't even know what to do. I couldn't even think of. I had to unpack, repack. I go, get me an airline ticket. Whatever. So when I heard this call, I literally looked up to the ceiling. And I said, God, I am not doing this again. Not this fast. Because when they gave me his list of injuries, no way he's gonna live. I didn't think. So do you have any pictures to put up there?
yeah, I was just gonna ask if you wanted me to put the pictures in.
Yeah. So that the truck before, I mean, this John had only been gone 3 years and 4 months. We had only been married 2 years in a couple of weeks. And then I get this phone call again. I already got the one from Ecuador. I had to fly there. And now I have this. I was like, this is crazy stuff.
That's
You
a
don't
lot.
have
I
it?
mean, and you had only been married for a couple years at that
Two
point.
years,
So,
exactly, because we were going on our 2nd-year anniversary. So our anniversary is August 28th. It is now September 16th.
wow.
Okay, here we go. Share your screen.
Are you seeing the pictures yet, Carol?
It says Kimberly Stairs has started screen sharing, is all
Okay,
it says.
there we go. It should be, we should be able to see it, hopefully. I think it's just loading because there's a lot of videos on my screens right now.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah, so anyway, our truck was only 15 months old. We owned the truck and the trailer at that time. Donnie had his own business as usual. So don't you have the beginning? The way the truck looked good? No, this is like what ended up the accident. It happened at about 11:30 at night. That's how the truck ended up. That's the top. On the bottom, it's upside down. The gas tanks are up on the top. So Donnie was ejected. Yeah, that's the front of the truck. They were both ejected because David didn't wear a seatbelt. And where that smash part is, that's where Donnie's head would have been had he not been ejected. Of course, they had to flip the truck back over, right? It ended up upside down. And show Donnie in the right to that one, yeah. So when I got there, that's what he looked like. And I thought he wouldn't have any hair because he had 6 massive head lacerations. And we were giving him 80 to 100 drops of oil in a capsule every day, and in 12 days he looked like this. Oh, show his face. Yeah, 12 days like that. We didn't put any oil on topically because he had so many staples and holes and patches and whatever. We just gave it to him in capsules. And then that other picture with all the products, those are all the products the owner of Young Living, well, those are mine, but the Young Living gave us. They overnight Federal Expressed all these oil. Now those big brown bottles with just handwritten labels, those are all oils: frankincense, vetiver, valerian, rutabaga, deep relief, and I can't remember the other one. But
I
those are the
mean,
ones.
I've never seen bottles of oil that big. That's just
Yeah, well,
amazing.
they just filled them there because Mary Young just said, because they had just gone through, they were with me with John, and then this happens. So they flew their personal assistant out, and she's like, "Oh my God, Mary, this is horrible." She's like, "What do you need?" She tells her, so this is what they sent: sleep essence, mineral essence, because you need minerals to heal, and then Rahimogen to clean up the blood.
And then
And
this was your personal collection that you brought too, right?
oh, that's part of it. And then the cases, I mean, I had probably 300 oils.
And then here's Donnie. This is after the accident, right? Uh,
No, that's actually before.
oh, was it before? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was probably a year before. Yeah,
Wow.
he's just the sweetest man. He's as sweet as he looks right
He
there.
really is. Yeah.
But anyway, so we were in the hospital for 2 months. They said it would be 4. They said he'd be in rehab for 6 months. He was there for 3 days and walked out. But he had bad injuries, stuff you can't even see because it would make you sick. But yeah, he's a walking miracle. And if it wasn't for the oils,
Hmm.
not be alive, there is no way.
Carol, I remember the very first time that I heard you tell this story, it gave me goosebumps. I just remember thinking there's no way. And it totally solidified my belief and faith in natural products. I know that the pictures are really horrifying. I'm sure it was way worse to see in person. But one of the pieces of your story that stands out so much to me is your deep faith in God and just how much you believe in natural remedies. So, I just wanted to have a minute to have just kind of have you share a little bit about your journey of natural living and how you really fell in love with that.
Okay. Well, my mom, I told you, was a registered nurse, but she had a very strong entrepreneurial spirit, and she was into the health thing. So my parents were very high ranking in Shackley back in the 70s. And so we had to take literally handfuls of vitamins every day. And I used to have these giant tonsils I still have my tonsils, but they were so big that they touched even when they weren't sore. When they were sore, they just overlapped, you know? So I took like 22 alfalfa pills a day. And in about 2 years, they shrunk back to normal size. But I had a sore throat every day of my life till I was about 24 years old. And if I was sick, it was worse. But anyway, my parents, we had to eat healthy food. I mean, we complained about it, of course, because everybody else gets to eat blueberry, and we're eating stuff that's like a bale of hay. So, but my mom's like, I have eight kids. We cannot be sick. You can't. And to this day, I have never been in a hospital one day in my life, period.
Oh, wow, touch wood for that. That's amazing.
Yeah. And because she's like, don't go there unless it blows up or breaks. And now when Donnie was in the hospital, my mom took off of work. She worked till full time, so she was 85 years old.
Yeah, and that's something we have in common. Both of our moms were nurses, so that's
Oh,
like,
really? I didn't know. I didn't know.
yeah.
So she took off and was out there at 78 years old, and she was out there. I mean, I was there for 2 months. She was out there for a few weeks, and then she went back home. She's like, I'm gonna lose my job. I said, so what? You're 78 years old.
It's time
But
for you
anyway,
to
she
leave
went
your
home, and
job.
then I almost lost it. I mean, I was just completely a basket case, and Donnie went into deep depression when she left because he's really attached to her.
Mm.
And so she flew back. She goes, Dad, I'm gonna have to go back there, or we're gonna lose both of them. And it was true. I mean, I just had a serious meltdown bad. So anyway, my parents, of course, my mom, she had the most rock solid faith. I mean, we've been through a lot of stuff, and she would pray for stuff, and I'm thinking, are you crazy? That is just ridiculous. It would happen, you know? So I just know that God listens, you know? And it's just the way I was raised. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You know, no matter how bad it looks out in the world or how bad stuff is, you think, um, he will come through. You gotta ask him though. Gotta
Yeah.
ask him.
Yeah.
I was raised in the health thing, and I'm so thankful, even though I hated eating all that healthy food. But, I have a good constitution, and my mom loved the oils. She would say, "Hey, I got a thyroid problem, so what do you got?" They tell me I gotta say Synthroid. Well, I could have a stroke if I take that, blah, blah, blah. So she would just get it, and she always carried a bottle of Deep Relief, the roll-on in
Oh,
her
that's one of my
pocket.
favorites.
'Cause,
Yes.
my workers get, because she was the head nurse, so they get a headache or whatever. So I said, "Here, roll some of this on." She's like, "Oh, that really works." But she was a really good advocate for it, even all the way up to the end. She was using tons of oils.
That's awesome, Carol. And I know, like, for me personally, you have been one of my best mentors. You have taught me so much about holistic strategies and just how to take care of yourself and not have to worry about taking prescriptions. And, there's so many easy things that we can do for our health that are so much more natural. So I am so grateful for your presence in my life. So Carol, I know that we could just keep talking all night. You have
You
so
know?
many great stories to tell, and you definitely made my night just by sharing with us. But before we wrap up, I know that earlier in the call, I was telling everybody that we're getting ready to launch our Calm Your Christmas Challenge Monday, and we're going to be working together as a community to embrace the magic of Christmas and ditch the chaos. So before we wrap up, can you share some of your personal strategies for managing the overwhelm? And then how do you stay in the present moment during the stressful times of the holidays?
Yes, because, being in a humongous family that I am, there's like 58 people in my immediate family. Um, I just get a lot of things going. You got to do this, you got to that. You got like 50 things going. Now that will stress me out. So the oil that I use, and I have it on tonight, is Clarity. And what it does, it just kind of it focuses everything in, and like it gives you, I don't care if you have 20 plates rolling in the air, you're like, oh my God, I gotta do this. It gives me the feeling that I can do this, and you have more of a laser focus. Because really, when you're all scattered like that in that focus, you really don't get anything done. But it just helps you really focus. I really like that. Peace and Calming is another oil. It's the same color, but Peace and Calming, I wear that just because I love the smell of it. I put it over my heart at night and on my wrist, and I just breathe it because it smells heavenly. Now I sleep like the dead, so I don't need help sleeping, but I think it helps me sleep at a deeper level. Another thing is because of the germs and everything else, and you're stuffed up more, I think, in the morning because you have your heat on, the house is closed up. I have two magical remedies for the diffuser. I have a diffuser right beside my bed. I either put 8 drops of this citrus fresh plus 2 drops of peppermint in there and run it right next to my bed all night so I don't wake up stuffy. Or recently I've switched to 8 drops of this Raven and 2 drops of peppermint. And I feel really clear and calm.
Mm.
And I can breathe.
I never thought to combine citrus fresh and peppermint. That sounds
I
pretty
I
pretty.
didn't either. I stayed at Terry Seacrest's sister Jan's once, and she had that in the diffuser the first night I showed up, and it just smelled so clean in this room. Like, oh my gosh, it's wonderful. And I woke up in the morning and said, "What in the world did you put in there?" And she told me, and I'm like, "Man, I never would have thought of that, but it's one of my favorites. So now when people stay at my house in the guest room, I always do the citrus fresh and peppermint before they get there and have it going, and they sleep like wonderfully because you're getting oxygen, you know?
Yeah.
And then the other oil of standby, of course, is stress away. It's a roll on, you just roll it on your wrist. If you're feeling, when you're feeling stressed, you're just like, I just got to put on some oils just to calm myself down. And it really, really does. Those are my favorites. I have tons, of course, but that's what I use. And then like for the trauma that I was going through, joy, I used a lot of, even though I didn't like it at first. It was
Yep.
too much.
I'm right there with you. Sometimes I love the smell of joy, and other times I can't stand it. So
Yeah, it
that's
got jasmine. Jasmine is a very powerful smell. And I used to get a headache from it, but now I can wear it as a perfume. It doesn't bother me a bit.
yep. That's awesome. Thank you, Carol. I love those oils. I love the strategies that you use. And I know I'm so grateful that you're in the Elevation Tribe because you have such great wisdom to bring to our community. So, Carol, thank you for sharing your story and for joining us. And your friendship has just been such a gift to me. I'm so grateful that we were able to meet. And I'm also really grateful that you were able to share your sweet spirit so everybody else could experience your beautiful soul today. So,
Thanks. Well, I just want to encourage everybody, just be an overcomer. When things are bad, you just you're going to make it. I mean, you have to have strong faith, and just you're going to be an overcomer. What doesn't kill you will make you stronger.
I love that, Carol. It's such a beautiful message to share. So, thank you for that.
Hmm.
So, y'all, what did I tell you? Carol is so much more fun in person. I know that doesn't even sound possible, but I promise you, like she is. So, I knew that she was going to be really fun to have on this call tonight, and I'm so glad. I can tell that there's been a few questions and comments and things, but we have actually run out of time. So, I am going to go ahead and wrap up this call. Thank you again, Carol, for sharing your story.